Hello again, guys, gals, non-binary pals. I got another fun video today, a fun topic that I've been thinking randomly of lately. And I would say most gamers nowadays have a list of what they call their holy grails, which are basically, maybe super rare, super expensive items that, you can't necessarily afford or find, but maybe someday you'll find them. And obviously, if you have unlimited money, holy grails aren't a thing. You can buy whatever you want on the internet. I definitely have some holy grails of mine that I've already accepted that I'm never gonna get for various reasons. And I just wanted to share them today and have a chat about it in the comments below. Do you have some of these holy grails, or is your list completely different? Let me know. Let's talk. Let's chat. Do you have a cool story about how you got some of your holy grails, or, if your holy grails are totally different than mine? Let me know in the comments below. Let's chat about it. Let's have fun. And so, I don't know. This is my top 5 holy grail video gaming items. These holy grails I sort of listed in the order of I'm probably not going to get it. So my fifth one, this first one that we're going to talk about, is achievable. My second one's a little more less achievable, and so on and so forth. My number one I'm never going to get. So it is what it is. Number 5. And my first holy grail item is actually an arcade game. If you know me, if you watch Figurama, which is my figure collecting channel at all, my favorite childhood toy is G.I. Joe. And the big reason, I've talked about this on my figure channel before, but I've never talked about it on the video game channel, obviously. But the main reason it was my childhood #1 toy growing up is because, I grew up, not very much money, very lower class. And G.I. Joes at the store were the cheapest toy. You could get a G.I. Joe for like $2. It was like $2.50, maybe got to $3, when I was a teenager or so. But, it was much easier to go into a store and beg your mother or your father, hey, buy me a G.I. Joe. It's only $2.50, rather than that $10, Transformer over there, which was amazing too, or that He-Man or whatever. They were amazing too, but they were double, triple the price. So that's how I ended up more on the G.I. Joe side than anything else. So it's definitely my favorite childhood toy. And I love the G.I. Joe classified figures that are out right now from Hasbro and everything. And yes, this does tie into my holy grail. So I'm a huge G.I. Joe fan, I guess is what I'm getting at. And one of my favorite probably my favorite arcade game that I've ever played in an arcade, believe it or not, I don't know. This could be a weird pick to some people. I don't care. It's my pick. But my holy grail would be they have a G.I. Joe Konami-made arcade game. A lot of people actually don't know about this game because I don't think it was super popular. But it's so cool. I only played it a few times, and it's sort of like an on-rail shooter where you move your G.I. Joe side to side, and up and down moves the reticle up and down, so you can dodge bullets and shoot things as you're running at the screen. So there's a lot of zooming effects and stuff like that. And all the classic G.I. Joe characters are there. Man, I forget where I played this. I think it was an arcade down on the beach side in Daytona Beach, Florida when I was growing up. But oh my gosh, it was so cool to see the Joes in that style, with good graphics. Because before then, I think the only G.I. Joe game I played before then were the Nintendo games. The Nintendo games were good. I think they're very fun, but this was on another level. It was 4-player depending on where you stood. Each person had a different character. There was Duke, Snake Eyes, Scarlet, and Roadblock. So it was 4-player. You could play 4-player at once. And it was so amazing to see the G.I. Joes brought to, life with that graphic detail, and just the style of the game was super fun. I loved all the different sort of Cobra characters. It had a bunch of different Cobra characters: Metalhead, Baroness, Major Blood, Destro, Cobra Commander obviously was in there too. It was just such a fun game when I played it, nostalgia-wise for the game and nostalgia-wise for G.I. Joe. I would love someday to own one of the arcade cabinets. And I don't think they're that much money necessarily. I just have to find one when I have the funds, you know, so it's sort of a little gamble in there, but it's definitely one of my holy grail items. I'd definitely love to own one day. Number 4. All right, the next holy grail for me is it's relatively, well, I'm not going to say it's common, but I've seen it around. I know people that have it and stuff. It is accessible, although it is expensive nowadays, but I am a big GameCube fan. I love the GameCube, and I'd love someday to own the ultimate GameCube. And the ultimate GameCube is obviously the Panasonic Q. The Panasonic Q was a Japanese released GameCube. It was only released in Japan, and it takes more than the small GameCube games. It actually plays DVDs, VCDs, audio CDs, MP3 CDs, and obviously I don't want it for any of that capability. I just want it because it's shiny and looks cool. And obviously if you do find one, you'd obviously have to mod it to play American games because systems back then were region locked. But it's just such a cool centerpiece to a GameCube collection. Like the nice shiny, you know, silver and how bright it is. Oh man, it looks so cool. If you want to see a really good video on it, about the history about it and everything, I would check out the Gaming Historians video, which I will link below. And it even came with the matching controller. It wasn't quite metallic like the system, like the shiny sort of silver of the system. It did have a DVD remote too, because remember it played DVDs. And the coolest feature is probably on the top of it, it had this little like backlit LCD screen that could tell you like track names and stuff like that. Like it's definitely, it's such a cool piece of hardware, and I'd love to own one someday. Because I love the GameCube. It'd be nice to have that sort of, that's the ultimate GameCube in my mind, and I'd love to have one someday. Number 3. All right, my number 3 most wanted holy grail is actually something I've owned before. Quick story about me. I used to work at, I worked at a video game store in Florida for about 8 years. It was called the Video Game Dungeon. And it was, for a time, from its heyday, it was like the #1 video game store in Central Florida, which is where I grew up. I was a pseudo celebrity. I'd get recognized going to like the grocery store, like, hey, that's the guy from the video game store. But anyways, the moral of the story is, while I worked there, I owned a lot of things and sold a lot of things, meaning the stuff people would trade in, you wouldn't even believe. Especially nowadays, if I told you some of the things that I'd seen come through the doors to be traded in for next to nothing, it would probably blow your mind. And one time someone did trade in my number 3 item, which is a Vectrex. And I did buy it, and I played it, and I loved it. I absolutely love the Vectrex. I can't really explain why. I'm not super nostalgic for it. Obviously, I didn't have one when I was little, but I love just the graphic style, and I love the control. And it's sort of like, it's an all-encompassed thing. Like, it's a monitor with 2 controllers hooked to it. And it's so cool. It's such a cool piece of history, such a unique piece of video game history. And, you know, eventually through, you know, I'm going to tell the story someday, but through my moves, eventually I moved around a lot when I was younger. And, you know, working at the video game store too, it honestly, it gave me a false sense of not holding on to stuff for a long time, because my mentality then was, hey, people trade these in all the time, so I can buy one, you know, play it, keep it for a month, sell it back to buy something else, because I'm going to have a chance to get it someday. Well, obviously I don't work there anymore, so that only works if I work there for the rest of my life, and my life took a turn, and I do not work there anymore. I don't live in Florida anymore. So I did have to sell my Vectrex along the line sometime, and I would definitely love to get one again someday. But the price of it nowadays is just so crazy, because I would imagine most of the Vectrex don't work because they're almost old CRT, you know, tube TVs, and those don't ship well. They don't move well. They don't last very long. I'm sure you can get them, you know, capacitors redone and stuff like that on them nowadays. But I think the people who really like the Vectrex fall in love with the graphics, because it's vector graphics. If you don't know what that is, it's sort of like there's 2 dots on the screen. The way they do the graphics is 2 dots, but you can connect them with the line. So all the graphics on the screen are sort of made out of lines, these bright white lines. It's a black background, bright white lines. Some of the games for the Vectrex actually have an overlay you can put over the screen to actually, you know, make it like a race car track or a football field or something like that. So it's a really cool graphical effect, and I definitely dig it. I love those old school vector style graphics, and the Vectrex was so cool. I loved it while I had it. I loved it. And, you know, sad to say that I had to get rid of it eventually, and I did, and I haven't owned one since, obviously, and I hope someday maybe luck will come my way and I'll find one somewhere for, you know, not $1 million, but the way things are going, who knows. Number 2. All right, Holy Grail number 2. This one won't maybe surprise people, I guess, if they watch the channel, but I definitely like to have someday, little by little. This is one I can build up to little by little, but I'd love to have a US Sega Saturn collection. In the US, there was 258 Sega Saturn games released in the US. In Japan, there was thousands. That's not a thing that's happening. And I own about 20 of them. So I'm on my way there. But the cool thing is I own a lot of the expensive ones already. And I've said this before in my Saturn collection video. Saturn is my favorite game system of all time, nostalgia-wise. Just for me, you know, it's not everybody's, it's mine. And so, you know, I'm not a completionist collector. I'm not a completionist collector with action figures or video games or anything necessarily. But I think one day I would like to tick that box off on having a good US Sega Saturn collection, because it does mean a lot to me. The games that I have a lot of sentimental value, and a lot of the US Saturn games that I don't have anymore still do have value to me, sentimental value, but I did get rid of them, you know, along the way, some ways. And like I said before, a lot of the Saturn stuff too, I would see come in the video game dungeon all the time. So I'd buy up, you know, the ones that I wanted. But, you know, there was points in my life where I had to sell some stuff, you know, out of necessity. And Sega Saturn games are no exception, even though I kept the ones that I had to keep, which I explained in my Saturn video. If you haven't seen it, I'll link to that below too. And so I'm basically building up the collection little by little now, right? Like there's cheap games that I need, there's expensive games that I need. So, you know, I'm always looking on Facebook Marketplace and, you know, Craigslist and stuff like that for anything that pops up that's affordable. I actually got, you know, some Virtua Fighter 2, you know, last week for, you know, a good price, and I needed the big box version. So I'm getting there little by little, and it's definitely one of my long-term collecting Holy Grails that honestly I think I can do, because it is long-term and I have most of the super expensive games already. Magic Knight Rare Earth, Panzer Dragoon Saga, all that sort of stuff. Most of the Working Designs games, I have them all already. So I have them knocked off the list. So I'm good to go. So US Saturn collection. I'd love to have one someday. Love to, love to, love to. I'm working on it. Number 1. All right, and my number 1 gaming Holy Grail of all time, the thing that I've already relegated myself to never being able to get, as of this video, as of recording this video, searching even completed auctions on eBay right now, come up with zero. Not even one sold in the past, I don't know, 3 months, 6 months, something like that. And my favorite system of all time is the Sega Saturn. My favorite game series of all time, yes, game series, there is a video on this coming too, is Panzer Dragoon, which I've said before, you know, yes, more than Final Fantasy, more than, you know, Ninja Turtles. Panzer Dragoon is my favorite game series of all time. It means so much to me emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically, everything. It's my everything. It's the wind beneath my wing. So my number 1 gaming Holy Grail might be obvious to some where this is going, but it is, yes, the Panzer Dragoon Orta White Xbox. Limited edition Xbox. Only released in Japan. You could only buy it through Sega Direct when it came out. they only made, I believe, I've seen a couple different numbers, but I believe they only made 999 units of this. This thing is so beautiful. This is more beautiful than a Lamborghini. More beautiful than a Lamborghini with Jessica Alba driving it. Like, this thing is like, oh, this is my dream right here. This is my dream Xbox. I actually did have a chance to buy one a few years ago. It was over $1,000, and I couldn't quite warrant swinging it at the time, but now I can't even find any for sale. None for sale. So I really don't think I'm ever getting this Holy Grail, but just look at it. Look at the glistening white, the black jewel, the Panzer Dragoon paint job on the top, the matching controller, even the box. Oh, I want this so bad, but I know I'm never gonna find one. Even if I did find one, it'd be exorbitantly priced. I think Price Charting lists it right now like $1,400 and maybe like $3,000 if it has the box or something like that, which is, it's not unreasonable. It's unreasonable if you don't got a lot of money, but it's not unreasonable for something that there's only 999 existing of. Obviously, it was released alongside the game in 2002. It does have the game's logo on the Xbox too, which looks amazing. And man, as a Panzer Dragoon fan, this is definitely the Holy Grail. Like, if you like Panzer Dragoon, if you are a fan, this is probably your Holy Grail too. If it's not, let me know below. I'd love to know if there's more cool Panzer Dragoon merch that I maybe don't know about. I know the system, when it came out, it came with all the bells and whistles. It came with the S controller, the AV box, it had a Panzer Dragoon necklace, it had the game, it had a soundtrack. Oh man, it blew my mind when I first learned about it. I've never seen one in person because it's from Japan. Even if I ever saw one in person someday, I think I would be happy with just seeing one, just touching it, poking it. I would be happy. But anyways, those are my 5, there's probably more that I could think of if I really tried, but these are just 5 Holy Grails, essentially, that I have in my mind for my collection someday that I hope to get. Most of them I know I'm not going to get, but it's good to hold on to hope. I have hope in my heart still. So tell me about your Holy Grails. Is there anything cool that I might not know about related to mine? Meaning, like, if we have the same likes and stuff, let me know some of yours in the comments below and let's sort of chat about them. Let me know. So guys, gals, non-binary pals, thanks for tuning in again and supporting the channel and all that good stuff. Peace out.